Good morning, and thank you for joining us for our first town hall for the ARP and CRISA funding. The purpose of this is to get input from all of you who are attending today. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time just giving a quick presentation, but I want to reserve most of our time for opportunities to hear from you. So we are going to start very quickly with a quick PowerPoint. I won't read the entire PowerPoint to you, but I will just go through it quickly. And also this PowerPoint is posted on our website. Okay. So first, the CRISA plan stands for Coronal Response and Relief Supplemental Appropriations Act. It was enacted back in December of 2020, and the Kingston City School District has an allocation of just over $6.4 million. The ARP plan, or the American Rescue Plan, was enacted in March of 2021, and the Kingston City School District has an allocation of just over $15 million. CRISA spans over 3 years, so we have over 3 years to plan for the spending of this funding here in our district. It ends in September of 2024, and our application deadline is June 15th, 2021. The ARP is a 4-year span, goes through 24-25 school year, well, not quite through it, into September 30th of 2025, and the application for that is June 30th, 2021. And when I speak of application, it's actually a submittal of our plan, and I'll talk about it a little later. Our plan is also allowed to be flexible, so we're able to assess and make changes to our plan as we go through the 3 years of the CRISA and the 4 years of the ARP. So the ARP plan, 20% of that money has to be spent on evidence-based program to address learning loss during the COVID-19 state of emergency. Of that, just above $100,000 must be spent on evidence-based summer enrichment, and $100,000 must be spent on evidence-based comprehensive after-school programming. Now that's an at least. That's not the number that we will necessarily spend. We're probably going to spend more than that in both those categories. All other allowable spending is just $11.5 million. We've been given minimums per year that we have to spend and a maximum that we can spend. I won't read through all this, but like I said, this is available. There are federal guidelines for the use of ARP, but one of the things that I did want to, kind of point out that the federal government is recommending we prioritize spending on non-recurring expenses. So they're looking for us to find ways that aren't going to occur after this money falls off. Anyone who's ever dealt with grant funding, which is what this is considered, grant funding, knows that after a certain number of time that falls off, and you have to be able to maintain that spending in the regular budget. CRISA, also, I won't read all of these, but there are several different areas where we must focus for the CRISA. It's continued. Some key points that I just started to mention, the CRISA and the ARP are not permanent. As I said, the CRISA is a 3-year funding program and the ARP is a 4-year funding program. So the full phase-in of the foundation will not will not match the CRISA and ARP. So in the last budget, the full funding of our foundation formula was passed by New York State, our New York State government. And we are going to see an increase a predictable increase in our foundation funding from now on. But there will be no point where that will reach the numbers that CRISA and ARP are providing for us during this time. The full phase in foundation aid. Is really based on several different things, though. So we had a full foundation aid that was passed back in 2007, but then we had an economic downturn and we ended up not getting that full foundation aid. So we're hopeful that we'll continue to get that foundation aid as they promised, but there's several things that it's predicated on: personal income taxes, sports betting. This is a new initiative through the state, and legalization of marijuana are also ways the state is looking to increase their revenues to fund our foundation aid. Again, emphasize the need to allocate funding in a way that does not drastically increase district regular budget spending. that would create what we call a fiscal cliff. Like I said earlier, when the funding runs out for the ARP and the CRISA, to fall off that cliff where we don't have that money to maintain the programs that we put in place. So we're carefully looking at how we're going to spend this money after we hear back from our community. When we put this plan in place, how will we spend this? So 4 years from now, we're not going to the taxpayers and asking for a huge tax increase or cutting many people in programs. We are doing some early planning for this spending, and we also have some other, since this came out, we are looking at some different options, but summer school and adding to our diversity and equity and a director of diversity and equity and inclusion into our district. These are the forums that we'll be using to communicate with all of you and get your input. Really, this isn't necessarily a question and answer, although I will answer any questions. Really, we're looking for input. What are your ideas and what are your thoughts? So we are going to use virtual town halls like this one. We are putting in a program called Thought Exchange on our website, which will allow people to put in their ideas and their thoughts and allow us to really look through that data and be able to disaggregate it out and find out what our community really is looking for. In-person forums. We're using our district leadership teams, which are made up of administration, faculty, staff, and parents to get their feedback. Community members and partners, the community groups that we work with, as well as our Board of Education members and all of our labor unions here in the Kingston City School District. Although this isn't just in, this was a few weeks ago when I put this slide in, but we also, within 30 days of submitting our plan, we do have to put in a new reopening plan. Even if we are fully reopened, we do have to update and change our reopening plan to make sure that we are maintaining safety for students, our faculty, our staff, and also how we're going to continue to give education to our students if we are put in a situation to go remote again. So public information sessions on that plan will also be held over the summer. Okay. A few other things that we've been working on since this all came up. So really, we want to hear from our community, and the community input will be the basis for many of our programs. But we did create kind of what we call pillars or tenets of the Kingston City School District Plan. Number one, obviously the most important that has been stated by the federal government and the state government, is to assess and address the learning loss of our students during the COVID pandemic. We also want to know the tenets is social emotional wellness and their social emotional health of our students, our faculty, and our staff. Equity and culturally responsive education, technology and the use of technology, as well as accessibility. English language learners, a focus on our ELL students. Students with disabilities, economically disadvantaged students, our facilities and our heating, ventilation, and air conditioning systems. Our preparation for a full reopening in 2021, professional development for our faculty and staff, as well as remote schooling should we be required to continue remote schooling in September of 2021. And now I will go through some of the comments, questions, and I will just read them, and if I think they need a response, I will answer. But we are taking notes, and this is being recorded, so we can go back and look at all of the input from our individuals who have published questions. So I'll start here. Can we get air conditioning in schools that do not currently have it? The classrooms become unbearably hot, and it is not a great learning environment for our students. Yeah, as I said in what I just said, we are looking at our heating, ventilation, and air conditioning systems. We're going to work with our engineers and our architects to see what can we do, around not only about air conditioning, but also upgrading our filters, upgrading our ventilation systems. So we do have more modern ventilation. As most of you know, there were specific filters that were recommended for buildings during the COVID-19 crisis. And many of our buildings, all of our buildings actually, did not have the proper, could not fit those filters. So we did the best we could and used the highest rated filter we could, but the filters that were recommended by the CDC we were not able to put into our system. So we are looking at a complete evaluation of what our heating, ventilation, and air conditioning system is, and what we can do to not only relieve some of the situations with heat, but also relieve some of the situations and have the most effective ventilation systems we possibly can have. For schools that would need windows for air conditioners instead of replacing the windows, maybe ductless air conditioners could be considered. Again, to go back to what I was saying before, but thank you. What kind of input have you gathered from teachers about how they want to see the money used? Did you put out a survey to faculty? What did they suggest? Have they been suggesting? So I've been working with the Kingston Teachers Federation, and the leadership of the Kingston Teachers Federation is going building to building and holding meetings with their members. And then I'm meeting with the board of directors for the Kingston Teachers Federation. They're going to bring that information and present that to me. So we haven't completed that process yet, but that's how we're going to work through with our teachers unions, and we're going to do the same with our other unions as well. What are your top priorities for spending, and how will you collect data from the community to help guide the spending plans? Well, just to answer the second part first, we're collecting data just by doing this. This, and as I said, the thought exchange that we're going to use, in-person forums, working with our community partners. So we are, these meetings are going to be really recorded. They're going to be transcribed. We're going to know every question in every forum, every piece of input that we have, and we'll be using that to, really inform how we go forward and make this plan. But the second part, what are our priorities? As I said, we have what I call pillars or tenets of our plan, and they're the 10 or 11 things that I mentioned at the beginning. But I think one of the things we're really focused on right now is assessing and addressing the learning loss. That's kind of the wolf at the door, and the opportunity for that is the end of the year and summer. Obviously, we're going to expand that over the next 3 to 4 years, because we're not going to address all of the learning loss that occurred in these last 18 months, 16 months in one summer. But that's our initial plan, but looking at addressing learning loss and our students' social, emotional, and physical well-being. I think there are two main priorities. Are there still classrooms and other rooms that don't have updated HVAC systems? Do all areas in the facilities have updated ventilation? This is an area I think the district should spend money on if they haven't already. Yeah, we do. We do have areas that need to have updated HVAC systems, and that's why we're going to do a complete. We did our 5-year facilities review plan, which we're required to by the state. Our architects have made recommendations around improvements, so we're going to review those, work with our engineers, and see which ones are possible for us to do. One of the struggles with the HVAC and any kind of building within the ARP money and the CRISA money is there's a little bit of a conflict. First of all, there's a lengthy process to get these approved through the state education department. But the second thing is we also have building aid that we would get. So we get 65 cents on a dollar on building aid, but we can't apply building aid when using the federal funding. So it's a balance of how are we going to, which pot of money would we want to look for when we're doing the improvements of our HVAC, and also any improvement, any capital improvement, regardless of what it is, whether it's from our state funding or from this federal funding, has to be approved by the voters. So that's another one of those obstacles that we face in the length of time that it would take us to get there. But we're going to do a complete evaluation and see what we can do to improve not only our temperatures in our buildings, but also the quality of our ventilation. When will school start time go back to the original 8:30, 8:45 for elementary? Our expectation is that will be in September. The pandemic has led to a lot of trauma for some of our students. Loss of housing, family tragedy and death, depression, anxiety, etc. What additional mental health supports are you considering implementing? So again, those are the things we're looking for when speaking to our teachers, when speaking to our communities. What are those things that they think would be most effective? Obviously, we're looking at increasing and improving our social workers and our in building mental health resources, as well as working with some of our partners. Currently, we work with Astor and the Institute for Family Health, and seeing if we can increase those services in each of our buildings to allow us to have those extra hands around student social emotional well-being and mental health. So those are the areas where we're looking to make those improvements, as well as expand upon our social emotional learning programs that we already have in place, our trauma-informed education programs that we already have in place. So how can we expand those to make those, not instead of being in pockets, make them across the district a full implementation K through 12. What community partners are you considering working with to gather data? We're going to send invites out just kind of generally to all of our community partners. We work very closely with the Boys and Girls Club now, with CCE. We're looking with the Ulster Immigrant Defense Organization. So we are, but we will reach out to, our local groups, our citizens action groups, to see when can we get them together in a room so we can have these conversations. Are you looking at adding more RTI services and providers? So yes, if that's the answer. The answer is yes. I've already, again, our assistant superintendents and our teaching and learning team and our deputy superintendent, Mr. Verge, have been working on kind of their wish lists as well. What are the things they see? I've already received information from them that they think that the RTI services, the long-term piece of assessing and addressing learning loss, those RTI services are going to be very necessary. What social, emotional, mental health supports might the district use these funds for? Positions, programs, partnerships? Yes, all three of those. We're looking at all three of those things. Again, positions, programs, and partnerships, balancing the increase in our foundation aid with the decrease in the federal aid over years, to make sure we don't put too many positions where then we end up either having to increase the burden on our taxpayers or remove those services. So working with partners, working with BOCES, working and adding positions, kind of a combination of those three things to increase our social, emotional, and mental health programs here in the district. The meetings are difficult to attend for many parents. Is there a place that I can write in ideas and comments, or maybe email their comments to concerns if they are unable to attend these forums? Actually, we've already been receiving many emails, but we're really looking to put in our thought exchange up on our website. We're just getting it going. Obviously, it's been a short timeline when we receive this from the state, but to get that up on their website so people can put in their thoughts and their ideas. And I know, so we're trying to do many different things: forums, thought exchange, working with our DLT, work with our labor. So several different opportunities and ways for people to get their information and what their thoughts to us. Okay, those are all our questions so far. Okay, well, as I stated earlier, this has been recorded, and we are taking all these questions, and we're keeping a database of these questions, so we know, and these recommendations. So when we put everything together, we start doing our plan. We'll say, okay, this was mentioned this many times in this many different forums, and this is a real focus. How do we fit those into our tenants and get those things done? Oh, I got a couple more questions. Okay, good. We need more ELL teachers and staff, English language learner teachers and staff. We also need to make sure everything, website, teacher conversations, flyers, and handouts to teachers are accessible to our ELL families. Translations and interpretation should be high priorities. Please talk more about the ELL services you might add. And I will say, one of the things, although today's town hall is not being translated, our next our two evenings, which tomorrow evening at 5 o'clock, and then on the 15th at 4 o'clock, we will be having another one of these meetings, and they will all be, we will have our translation person here to help us with that. So, the L programs, we have many different things going on with our L programs. One of the things that we're looking at is a SIFE program, which are students who come in who are just arriving, and how can we create a program and an academy for those students to help get them up to speed. Additional services for our L students through our teachers obviously is one of those pieces as well. Increasing our TESOL, so our teachers with a second language who are both dual certified in their subject area as well as English language learning. So we're looking at expanding and improving each of those. Additional bilingual family workers is another piece that we're looking at. For anyone who knows, our bilingual family workers do a tremendous amount of work and really are the go-to people for our ELL students, and we get a lot of our information that we need from those individuals. So increasing that capacity as well is very important, and looking for as we hire every position with the increased number of our English language learner students, having the ability or having the ability to be bilingual is really a big part of our hiring process as well. So looking at so many different ways, so many different things to work with our English language learners, work with their families, and bring them in and make sure that they are performing and that they are able to achieve and learn here in Kingston. What is DLT? Good question. Thank you. Sometimes we speak in too many acronyms, and I try to. It's called the DLT is the district leadership team, and the district leadership team's role in the past has been to create our yearly plans and set goals for our school building. So we have our building leadership teams, district leadership teams. Our buildings set the building goals, our district's leadership teams set the district goals. And like I said, those teams are made up of community members, parents, faculty members, administration, and we have subcommittees within there. So our subcommittees are all led by members of my cabinet, and they have been meeting over the last several days to solicit input from those individuals. Can these funds be used to support wireless internet access for the district? Yes. Part of our technology review and our technology plan is to look at, again, do an evaluation. Okay, especially now we have a really good opportunity to do an evaluation of, how did we do with our program as in remote learning. So that we'll be assessing that and looking to see if that's an area where we need to spend money. How can we use federal funds for reducing class size? Well, that's one of the things that's in there as far as looking at addressing learning loss and looking at class sizes. Currently, we have a commitment from K through 2 to be working with to have our classrooms be 22 or fewer. So we have used funds in the past to keep our class sizes small like that. So we're going to continue to do that and look where else we can decrease those class sizes, especially at the elementary level. That's a great question. Can federal funds be used for playgrounds? It's my interpretation, and again, as we go through the plan, we'll find out when we put it in whether or not it's successful. It's my interpretation that yes, that physical education, recess, outdoor education is all part of the whole working with the whole child. So my assumption is if we're looking for some social, emotional, and physical health of our students, playgrounds, athletic equipment, those kind of things are definitely things we can spend money on. That's my interpretation at this point. So hopefully I'm interpreting it right, but I think I am. Will there be an expansion of the Mahar pre-K program and an extension of dual language instructions into elementary schools? Yes. Well, the expansion of the pre-K program here we're kind of maxed out by our building size. So we are using all of our facility here for our pre-K, but we are looking at expanding our bilingual program into the elementary schools. And we were looking at that prior to the ARP and the CRISA funding. So that will be expanding. It's important to me that more of our teachers reflect our school community, ethnic, racial makeup. Can we use the money to help expand searches and improve retention? Yes, actually, part of our diversity, equity, and inclusion position will include having a focus on exactly that, the hiring and retention of faculty and staff that reflect the students that we have in our building. So yes, we plan on using, we've already, that was one of the things I think I put up on the slide, that we plan on using that money. Right now, we're going to create that department and that position to address exactly what you're speaking of. Are we going to be a one-to-one device next year? At this point, I'm going to say we are looking at that. One of the most important things of being a one-to-one district is how are we changing education? Is, there needs to be an education plan, there needs to be a pedagogical plan prior to the plan with the device. So I think that's working with our teachers, and we have this money over several years. So I really, if we're going to go to a one-to-one, I want that to mean something other than every student just has a Chromebook sitting at home and they're not using it. How are we changing what we do? How are we changing the classroom? What's our program? What's our pedagogical approach to using this technology? We want to make sure these aren't toys, these are tools, and that our teachers are prepared to use them and that they reflect a curricular goal in using the technology. Could you talk more about what trauma-informed classrooms look like? Well, we are working with particularly, we're working especially at JFK right now, who are kind of our experts right now. And we've been training a team, but I think expanding that training and a trauma-informed classroom really looks like, and again, I'm not as trained as many of our faculty and staff are, really looks like understanding what students bring to the classroom and being able to adjust how we work with students based on that knowledge. So it's providing the skill sets for our faculty and staff to work with students who come to us with trauma. And I think someone mentioned it earlier, not only, I think after we go through this state of emergency, just about everyone has some level of trauma coming back in. So having that working across the district is going to be important. Will the study of school capacity be completed in the next several years? Part of our building facilities review, informs us about, where are we with capacity. We do know that our general goal is to be around 85% capacity with 15% flexibility. We know there are some areas where we're growing past that. So we are looking at that and how we can address our elementary schools are staying pretty close to where we want them to do. Our middle schools are areas that we're going to focus on moving forward. Can this money be used for after-school programs to help enhance our kids' education? For example, things like more drama, music, art, paper airplane class, secret codes, etc. for elementary students. Yes, they can, and they will be. That's part of what we're looking at as far as addressing learning loss and dealing with our students' social, emotional, and physical health needs. So after-school programming is definitely allowed, and we are going to be implementing that. Have the guidelines been updated for use of shared materials in the classroom, such as books, tactile materials, blocks? Children are not just being isolated at home, they are being isolated from one another in the classroom. Yeah, that's a little off the topic of the ARP and the CRISA, but I think you're referring more to the COVID-19 guidelines, and they have not been really relaxed in those areas. We've been taking a little more liberal approach, especially around athletic equipment and those kind of things as far as use, but we have not seen have updates on just sharing of materials since the beginning of the pandemic. Our most latest update was what some of you probably already saw today, was allowing students outside of the school building to take their masks off. So that's the latest that we've received. Will a first draft plan be released to the public before the final submission? We're going to release several, probably, I think, as we build. Next week I have a board meeting and I'll be reporting out on what we've learned to this point. So as we build, we'll be reporting out, and then we will share that with our entire community. And again, I want to stress something that I think is, this isn't, although it's due on June 30th, that doesn't mean we can't change, assess, evaluate, and make adjustments to how we spend this money during the entire 4 years.
there is the possibility we start something that doesn't work out the way we want to as we assess it. There may be something else that comes along that we want to, that we get through, public input or research that we want to put in place, and we can make those adjustments. So I know the June 15th and the June 13th deadlines seem really overwhelming, and they are. My comfort level of it is being told that we can make adjustments as we move through. So over the 3 years in the CRISA and over the 4 years in the ARP, we can make adjustments of this plan. You mentioned in your plan fear of falling off a fiscal cliff. If the funding from the federal government is effectively utilized and shown to help the students, teachers, staff, couldn't said proof be utilized to shift how we fund education in a broader way toward the nationally subsidized model rather than one that is reliant on local tax base in addition to foundation aid, which is also apparently unreliable? Yeah, I mean, we have a board legislative action committee, and I'm involved with several state level organizations for superintendents, and we've always been asking for a more consistent, more predictable way to fund schools. So we could use these in using these programs and seeing this money too. These programs also, in some ways, the effective use of these programs and this money would eliminate the need for some of that money. So while we're offering a really improved, I should say, and increased services over this summer, as we deal with the learning loss, those programs may not need to be as intense in future summers, which I think most students would probably be happy about. But yeah, I mean, I think there's an argument for that. The other argument is that we've been saying for a long time, we need more money in our schools, and this year, the federal government has committed, and the state government has committed to us to have that money. So now is the opportunity to put together plans and programs that really help students and change the, really, if 4 years from now, the Kingston City School District looks like it does today, then we haven't effectively used this money. So it's a huge responsibility and a shared responsibility, and that's why we're having these forums. If a parent wants to become involved with a DLT, BLT, etc., can they do that? Just contact your building principal. So your building principal will be your your way to get into the building leadership team or the district leadership team. That's been the process for many years actually here at the BLT. But yeah, talk to your building principal. Can the money be used for anti-racist training for all school staff? Based on my experience, staff are well-meaning but still use materials that with racist stereotypes and considered racial. And there's an example there. Yes, it can be, and that is part of our planning as well. Can the money be used to help further improve the district food service? Chef Day's budget has gone great. Has some great plans, but his budget is extremely tight. Yes, I asked that question actually of our business office last week or 10 days ago, if we could be using this to do something with our food service. And I believe that fits right in with the ARP around the social, emotional, and physical health of our students. That nutrition is a big part of that, right? So yes, I think we can do that. Okay. Well, last time I started to sum it up, people started calling in, or not calling in, but writing in. But we do have a few more minutes, but if there are no more comments, input, or questions, I guess we'll sum it up. And first of all, thank you everyone for participating, and thank you for your input and your questions. I'll say it a third time, we are looking at each one of these, we're categorizing them, and we are transcribing to make sure we have a database of all the input that we have from the communities, so we can make our decisions that reflect what all of you are giving us as what you think we need to do here with this federal funding. So looking at all of the questions, I see, our mindsets and where we are around our tenants and our pillars seem to be in the same place as many of our parents, and it works. And as long as I sum it up, someone types in. Will you be sending a survey to students? Student input is going to be a big part of this. Again, getting to the end of the year is making it difficult, but yes, we want student input as well. And we are also using our, our past DTSDE surveys that many of you have done and our students have done to look at areas that were identified as need to improve in our district in prior years. So, just because we had COVID, many of those things they haven't changed. They've been consistent over years to make sure that we are addressing all of the needs. One more. Okay, good. We'll be sending an anonymous survey to teachers in addition to working with the union. We have not put out an anonymous survey to the teachers, but we are hoping for input through the thought exchange process, which won't matter what your position is in the district at that point. Working with KTF for the direct input, and then the indirect input through our thought exchange opportunity, which is not a survey, because it's really an interactive way to put in. Read what other people are saying, read what other input they give them or ideas they have, and add your own ideas to that, as well as you're allowed to rate other people's ideas, so you can say how much you agree with the certain ideas that are out there. So it's not the beauty for me of the thought exchange. It's not the district saying, do you want this? It's you saying to the district, I want this, and getting that agreed upon by so many different people during that process. Okay. So again, thank you for participating, and we will have another town hall tomorrow night at 5 o'clock. And for those of you who have more questions at that point, you can join us then. And then we also will be at 4 o'clock on the 15th. So thank you again. Have a great rest of your day.